Tonight I'm going to cook dinner for my meat lovers. I'm going to make a batch of buffalo stew. I'm going to use actually bison sirloin steaks in this. I'm going to cut them up into bite-sized pieces, and we're going to cook them in the Cosori multi-cooker on low, slow cook method. But all of the ingredients, so I can show you right off the bat, I'm going to use some things I already prepped for you. I have some baby carrots, about a pound of them. I took some celery and cut it up into large chunks. And I have about a pound of baby red potatoes. I just cut them in half. So they're all ready to go. I'm just going to set them aside. The other ingredients here, I'm going to use a little bit of olive oil and some pan searing flour to coat the buffalo meat. Now you can use regular flour, but this one I use because it has sea salt and white pepper in it, and it's a very finely milled flour. I buy this at Wegmans, but I'm sure you can buy other types of finely milled flour, and it's nice because it gives a little bit of a crispy edge compared to a cakey flour. Either's okay though. We're going to use some organic beef bone broth to cook this in. We have, and of course, some nice herbs. I have some fresh thyme. I have some fresh rosemary. Of course, some garlic and onion. I'm going to use some really finely chopped leeks and a couple portobello, baby bella mushrooms. I'm going to add a can of sweet corn and a can of diced tomatoes. This one I chose has garlic, olive oil seasoning in. That's the plan. So what we're going to do to get started is put a little olive oil in this pan to brown the meat. Now the buffalo or the bison, whichever you choose to use, really has almost no fat in it. That's why it's a nice healthy meat to eat. But we have to take a little bit extra care when we're preparing it because there's no fat in that, and it doesn't cook quite the same way as a hamburger. Alright, so the first thing we're going to use here is the saute mode so that we can brown the meat. So let's turn this on to saute, and this will take it up to 284 degrees, and I'm going to press start. You'll see this spinning around until the pan comes up to the right temperature. That's the best time to throw the meat in there. In the meantime, I'm going to take the steaks and cut them into pieces and coat them in the flour. This comes from Great Range Company, and it's in Colorado. Alright, it turns into quite a nice pile of meat actually to cook in this size pot with the amount of vegetables that we have set up here. And I just want to turn them over and dust them a little bit. And get them ready to throw into the pan when it reaches the right temperature. Okay, so the meat's ready. It's coated with the flour, and we'll wait on the pot. Let's, in the meantime, cut up the onion into nice chunks. I'm not trying to get real small pieces on this because most of the vegetables are hard vegetables that will take a while to cook. Now the leeks, I just have a couple small ends here, and you can see they're really tightly packed when they grow. And I'm just going to cut these rings. The leeks give a lot of good flavor to food and also add some vitamin K, and they're very nutritious. One of the most nutritious foods you can find. However, if you're on a restricted vitamin K diet, pick something else because some people can't eat the vitamin K. Now, the other, oh, did you hear that beeping? That means the pot's ready to start the saute. All right, here we go. All right, we're going to take the meat, drop it in there. Just want to brown it a little bit so that it seals in the juices. You hear the sizzle? And the flour that's on this meat here will actually help to thicken the gravy that's in the stew. Just toss this around a little bit in the nice hot pot because I just want to brown the edges a little bit. Don't want to really cook the meat thoroughly, just get the juices sealed into the pieces of meat. While it's cooking, I'm also going to slice up the portobello mushrooms. So I just want to cut right through some nice big fat slices because you know the mushrooms shrink pretty much, but aren't they nice? Oh my goodness, they're going to add a lot of flavor too. And I'm going to drain the can of corn and get that ready in the pot here. Oh, this looks delicious already. Okay. Alright, we're going to start adding some other ingredients. What I really like to add first is the leeks. The leeks are nice slices here. I'm going to open them up a little bit. And I think if I used leeks every day, I'd probably stop using onions so much. They taste so good and they're so nutritious. And when you're making a soup or a stew, wow, that's a great ingredient to add. Tossing the meat right into the leeks. Look how nicely the leeks are starting to brown right away because this pot is good and hot. This Cosori multi-cooker does so much for us. You probably saw Rick's video the other day where he made meatballs and he had spaghetti and meatballs. Well, here we go with some more stuff. Now I'm going to add these onions. I know several of our viewers have purchased this pot recently because they were asking for more recipes. So here's one that you haven't seen. I'm going to add the mushrooms next. That big bowl of vegetables that I had all set up. Let's see how much we can fit in here. Alright, I have chopped up garlic. Next I'm going to add the corn. I just opened a can of kerneled corn, but you can add other vegetables if you like. This is the time. And to really make this gravy richer, I'm adding the diced tomatoes with the garlic and olive oil. And it has other seasonings in too. I'm going to add the other seasonings, leaving them as sprigs because I'm just going to take these out at the end. But I want the flavors to go through the stew. And then the last ingredient is the bone broth. I like to use the Wegmans organic bone broth, and it has a lot of good nutrition. It's from grass-fed beef. It has a lot of flavor. So I'm just going to pour this in. You can see it's a nice dark, rich color. And we're going to use that to send some of that tomato down to the bottom. Alright, now if we have too much juice at the end, we'll save some of the broth for something else, but we'll see how it cooks. I think it's going to be delicious, just like this. And if we need to thicken up the broth that's on the stew at the end, we'll do that. We're going to put the lid on and cook it low and slow. I did leave the saute setting on to keep the pot good and hot. That means it doesn't have to start warming up again. I'm going to cancel the setting, and then I'm going to go over here and put this on low on the slow cook method. That takes it to 182 degrees. That's pretty low. And I'm going to leave it on for 8 hours. However, I'll probably take it out after 6. We're going to check on it and test it. So let's start. And since the pot was already on simmer, it already came up to temperature. And the pot started right up at 182 degrees because I had left saute on, and that was a little shortcut. Alright, well, we'll enjoy the smells in the kitchen while this is cooking, and we'll be back in about 6 hours to check the results. Okay, it's been a little over 6 hours. Let's take a look. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is take out the herbs before they get mixed in. They'll stay at one nice piece. That's the rosemary, and here's the thyme. And boy, you sure can smell those herbs. From when they were fresh. Now some of the leaves fell off of the thyme, and that's good. I guess that's it for the stems. Alright, there's a nice broth in here now. Even though we added bone broth, it's much darker and richer looking now. Look at that. Some of that's from the meat and the mushrooms and also the tomatoes. Now, if it's your preference to add more salt or anything here, you can, but I didn't because that white pepper that we used to brown the meat has salt in it, and so does the can of tomatoes that we used, so I'm not adding any sodium. But feel free if you like to season it differently. And also, you can thicken it up if you want to. But I think this sauce is rich enough, and it's not thick like heavy gravy, but if you like that on your stew, if you'd like to thicken this up, you can take a container of cold water, some flour, shake it up real good, and you can introduce it back into the pot and let it cook another half hour, but turn the heat up a little bit. And have a taste. Alright, there's a nice bowl of buffalo stew, good hearty broth, and really nice vegetables to go with the meat. That's very tasty. I'm going to show you a piece of the meat, how tender it is. Let's take a piece out of the pot here. We have little leaks on that one. But without even using a knife, look how tender. Look how that falls apart. Tender and juicy. It's actually still a little pink inside. It's nice. What a great way to cook this bison or buffalo. I hope you get a chance to try cooking this recipe, and slow cooking is really a nice way to try this. Alright, try this recipe when you can and let me know how it comes out for you. Thanks for watching.